Brothers and sisters, I want you to know that Black Lives Matter began in Ferguson, and it did not just make a moment in the history of civil rights, it created a movement. Without a movement, it all becomes so temporary. And a month later, it goes out of style, it's forgotten, until we see a man in New York saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And moments later, he's dead. And then we see Freddie Gray, who was able to walk and talk and even run. All of a sudden, he's dead. His spine is completely broken. But no one has a reasonable excuse as to why so many young black males have been killed, murdered in the past year or the past 2 years. So I was supposed to talk about how all this relates to Martin Luther King's dream. I'm going to ask you, personally, I would like for you to forget Martin's dream and not descend into your own. Movements are not built on dreams. What we need is a conscious, young, and old advocates ready to change. A world that has become terrible for not just black people, but for people of color and people seeking religious integrity. And if we aren't prepared to unite for a struggle for blacks, for Hispanics, for Muslims, if we are not prepared to wage this struggle, then we will fail. But first, we need to make a conscious admission to ourselves that Black Lives Matter. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd like for you to be perfectly honest. Now, first of all, I see very few black faces in the audience, and that bothers me, and it should bother you. But I want to know, and raise your hand, how many of you have had more than one black person in your house for iftar, for dinner, in the last 2 years? Now, that's pretty shameful. Because if we cannot wage a struggle from outside, if we're not prepared to change what's inside, you look across the communities, the Muslim communities and centers and societies across America, and you do not see Black American Muslims represented fairly. If you look at the shores in masjids across the country, rarely do you see any representation for Black American Muslims in order that they have a place to give their voice about the future of Black American Muslims in America. Something is wrong. And if we can't cure what's wrong, then maybe, quite possibly, we won't be able to cure the deficiencies that lies within us as an ummah. Now, those who are prepared to continue to dream Martin's dream, and those who continue to quote Martin Luther King, preaching for nonviolence for the weak, while they are promoting the biggest guns for the strong, they will not be able to stop murders like Eric Gardner, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, and a 12-year-old child by the name of Tamir Rice. We must be willing to be awakened from our dreams and understand the pain that exists within marginalized people before falling asleep again and accomplishing nothing. But a dream is a tricky thing. When you wake up, you will probably forget a lot of what has happened. Since Martin Luther King's dream, opportunity for Black people is an aberration to many white people who see it as a threat to a power structure which continues to dominate them and other people of color. We should not be seduced. Don't be tricked or seduced by the notion that Obama's presidency signals the end of racism, the civil rights movement, or the struggle of Black equality. Obama taught the nation how being Black is not a distortion of American ideals, but rather a celebration of them. But what came after that was very different. Still, Obama's foes or enemies tried to kick him to the curb of political life by demonizing him as a threat to the American life. He was bitterly denounced as a communist, socialist, Marxist, terrorist, traitor. And then their biggest insult or allegation against him was that he was a Muslim, as if there was something wrong with being a Muslim. Obama thought because of his cross-racial upbringing that he might be able to affect change amongst the whole. But actually, after Obama's elections, the demons of racism, the hoods of the devil of racism came straight out of their head. And there was a campaign not just to marginalize Obama, but also other people of color. The Oval Office is the ultimate symbol of power, of national access to do things to create change. If the levers of influence are weighed with bias and unjust privilege, they swing away from the promise of democracy, which is America's greatest legacy. Today, Americans of all types can be proud that the ideals of the founders, though trump over the centuries of racism and sexism, have almost found us, but they have not found us completely. A Black president cannot end Black misery. So if anybody thinks Obama has the backs of Black people, he doesn't. And that's not going to happen. A Black president can't be a civil rights leader or a preliminary or primary crusader for social justice. A Black president won't stop racism or erase bigotry. You all know that. A Black president is not the president of Blacks alone, but the president of the United States. So the election of Barack Obama symbolizes the resurrection. It was supposed to symbolize the resurrection of hope and restoration, a belief in a country that has often failed to treat Black citizens as kin. For millions of Blacks still remain abandoned by social neglect and cultural isolation. And that cultural isolation is not just in the streets of Chicago, Los Angeles, and Baltimore, but even amongst our own, even amongst the masjids in America. We have a great opportunity to wake up and think clearly, to articulate, criticize ourselves sharply, what it means to behave according to the Sunnah, what it means to develop the relationship that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had with Bilal. If we choose to do this, we will do away with racism within, and we will be able to deal with the forces of opposition against people of color from without. Martin Luther King argued for a colorblind society. that didn't happen. And right now, we are feeling the effects of religious racism and intolerance that we have not seen in over 100 years. Basically, you are the new black people of America. You are the people being imprisoned. You are the people being denied rights. You are the people being denied the dream. But if we could go beyond ourselves and our cultural ignorance and join hands with other advocates that are struggling for the rights of blacks, Hispanics, and other marginalized people of color, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless not only those who have been denied their rights, but Muslims who are being denied their rights right now. When I see Republican candidates talk about killing the wives of children, the wives and children who they have a problem with, Muslim children, because they have a problem with entities they have defined as terrorists, this has gone way beyond anything we could have thought, maybe even 20 years ago. Did we stand up? Did we say you will not murder our families because you have an agenda? They're not just against so-called groups, they're against you. And just as these black brothers and sisters have been murdered in the streets, if we don't stand, you will see Muslims murdered in the streets. For no other reason than that they say, La ilaha illallah. Allah has empowered you to create justice on the earth. Let's clean our own house first. Let's recognize that we are the community that staged a revolution across the world. If we could do that, why can't we have that revolution in America? Why can't we stand up against human indecencies and the lack of civil rights? Why can't we tell those leaders who value the lives of their own children, but willingly, openly are ready to deny the value of the lives of Muslim children? Our youth today believe that they have been let down. Some of them have chosen paths in the wrong direction because we didn't provide them with the right direction. We didn't let the history of Islam affect us to the point that we stand against oppression regardless of who is being oppressed. We cannot turn our backs from a social movement that is seeking to claim victory for all of us. If we do that, we don't deserve to be part of that victory. "20 years ago, George Bush started refurbishing concentration camps that housed Japanese American. These were American citizens, yet they were defined as a threat to American society. Are we truly going to sit back and if you think it can't happen, it can happen? When people on the news are saying, we're only going to let Syrian Christians into the country, then there's only one step further away of being willing to segregate these Syrians who come here for justice, to be put away in places they don't belong. And if that happens, that means we haven't done our job. You are the children of the greatest man in history, Muhammad alayhi salam. You don't need another message. You don't need another blueprint about what you should do. You know what you should do. And if we do it, Allah has promised us the same victories that He granted to those who came before us. And today must be that start. I don't want any of you leaving here without dedicating yourself to a cause for civil rights. You don't have to wait for Anas, who came all the way from the UK, to tell you what your duties are, or brothers Siraj. You already know what it is. You're here to be reminded and to be empowered. And we look forward to you stepping up to the challenge, because already we're late. Thank you very much.